Jax learned early that being an Omega in the underworld meant one of two things: you were owned or you were dead. He had been owned first, by his family. They lived in the lower districts, where buildings leaned like tired men, and hope was a currency no one could afford. His father worked docks until his back gave out. His mother stitched clothes for rich wives who never learned her name. They loved Jax fiercely, like love alone could keep the world from noticing them. It didn't. The night everything ended was loud. Jax remembered his mother's scream more clearly than anything else, raw and animal. He remembered being dragged away while his father fought like a man who already knew had lost. They never told him what happened to his family. The organization that bought him illegally didn't pretend to be kind. They called him an asset and stripped his name down to a file number. He was fed enough to survive, and trained until his body stopped shaking under pain. At first, he resisted. He screamed. He fought. They broke bones until he understood resistance only earned more suffering. So he adapted. They taught him how to move silently, how to blend into crowds, how to read a room and identify exits, threats, and weaknesses in under 10 seconds. When his Omega traits surfaced, they tried to crush them out of him. Your scent is a liability, they told him. So they drowned it in suppressants. When heat hit for the first time, they locked him in a reinforced room and left him there until he learned control through agony. He was thankful no one was successful in taking advantage of him during his heat. Despite many attempts, he was stronger. His first contract was a test. It was a man with debts, no family. They told Jax the target deserved it. They always said that. Jax didn't ask questions. He followed instructions. He waited until nightfall, crept into a poorly guarded apartment, and ended a life with shaking hands. He vomited afterward. You passed, they said. The next contract came easier. The next easier still. Over time, killing stopped feeling like a moral choice and became a skill, one he was frighteningly good at. They started paying him. With payment came freedom, small freedoms, better equipment, better rooms. The organization liked results, and Jax delivered them, which was why he was given the file in front of him. Kill the Alpha Mafia boss. Highest payout ever offered. No backup. Ezra Volkov. The name alone carried weight. Head of the Volkov Syndicate. Alpha among alphas. A man powerful enough that entire territories bent around him. Rumored to kill traitors himself and smile while doing it. Jax stared at the holographic profile, unimpressed. He accepted the contract within the hour, not because he wanted the money, but because killing Ezra Volkov would prove something, to them and to himself, that he was no longer owned, that he was strong. That was his first mistake, because 3 days into surveillance, while watching Ezra through a high-rise scope, Jax felt it. Heat, not full-blown, just a curl of warmth low in his spine. Jax swore under his breath. No, not yet. The Omega in him chose that moment to show itself. It was the day of the assassination. It was at a gala. Jax moved through the marble ballroom dressed in black, posture loose, expression bored. His scent blockers masked his coming heat, but his body was betraying him anyway. Skin too warm, heartbeat just a little too fast. Then Ezra Volkov turned. Jax had expected intimidating. He hadn't expected beautiful. Ezra's eyes were dark and observant. His gaze flicked over the room, then landed on Jax. Ezra's brow furrowed slightly, alpha instincts stirring. Jax stiffened. Too late. Ezra stepped closer, voice low. You're not on the guest list. Jax smiled, smooth and lazy. Neither is your attitude. For a heartbeat, Ezra looked stunned. Then he laughed. A real laugh. Short, surprised, bold. Jack's heat pulsed harder, traitorous. He clenched his jaw. He needed to take more heat blockers. If you'll excuse me. Ezra didn't move. What's your name? Does it matter? Ezra's gaze lingered, darkening. It might. Jack slipped past him before the Alpha could say anything else, heart pounding. He reached the restroom, locked himself inside, and braced both hands on the sink. His suppressants were failing fast. Jax laughed weakly at his reflection. This mission, he whispered, is officially cursed. Jax hated heat. No. Correction. He feared it. He could handle chaos, gunfire, but heat during a mission? Absolutely not. Hours into the gala, and one glance from Ezra, the warmth that had started low in his spine now rolled like fire across his body. Jax forced his hands to stop shaking. He was not going to fail. He took another heat blocker pill as the suppressant flooded his system. The heat dulled, but was not gone, just muffled enough to function. 10 minutes, maybe less. That was all he had. Heat or not, Ezra Volkov was just another target. A dangerous one, a beautiful one. Still, a target. Jax slipped the poison capsule from his inner pocket. Clear, odorless, fast-acting, designed to mimic sudden cardiac failure in alphas. By the time anyone noticed, Ezra would be dead and Jax would be gone. His jaw clenched. This was it. He smoothed his suit, lifted his chin, and stepped back into the party. The music swelled as Jax re-entered the ballroom, moving with purpose now. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Ezra stood near the bar, surrounded by alphas. Jax ignored the faint echo of heat curling in his gut. Fast, he reminded himself. He approached from the side, expression bored. When Ezra glanced over, recognition sparked in his eyes, curiosity, but not suspicion. Jax leaned against the bar beside him, close enough to smell Ezra's alpha scent. His heat stirred, impatient. The bartender slid Ezra a fresh drink. Perfect. Jax laughed at something Ezra's lieutenant said, leaned in as if he was interested in what he was saying, and let his fingers brush Ezra's glass. The capsule dissolved instantly. No sound, no trace. Ezra lifted the drink a second later and took a sip. Jack's heart slammed against his ribs. He straightened slowly, every instinct screaming to leave. Ezra continued talking, unaware, alive, for now. The poison would take minutes, maybe less. Jack stepped back, already planning his exit route. Then the suppressant cracked. His scent slipped, warm, unmistakably omega, edged with heat. Ezra froze mid-sentence. His gaze snapped to Jack's, sharp and suddenly dangerous. All the alphas in the ball got eyes on him. Jax felt it immediately. Oh no, he breathed. And for the first time in his life, Jax realized something terrifying. He had succeeded, but he might not escape. Jack's body gave out before his pride did. The world tilted. The last thing he remembered was Ezra's sharp eyes and that knowing smile. Then darkness swallowed everything whole. When Jax woke, the first thing he noticed was the bed. Soft, wide, expensive. The second thing was the restraints. His wrists were tied above his head with silk-lined cuffs, secure, humiliating. It was the work of someone who knew exactly how much force was needed to keep an Omega in place without injuring him. Jax sucked in a breath and immediately regretted it. Ezra's scent lingered everywhere. Not overwhelming, not aggressive. It was dominant, calm, the kind that made Jack's heat stir despite his fury. Absolutely not, Jax muttered, testing the restraints. They didn't budge. The room was massive and clearly part of a private residence, a mansion, if the view through the floor-to-ceiling windows was anything to go by. City lights glimmered far below. He'd failed. The realization hit harder than any blow ever had. Jax had never failed a mission. The door opened without a sound. Ezra walked in like this was just another quiet evening at home. No suit now, just a fitted black shirt with sleeves rolled up. Relaxed. Alive. Very much alive. Jax stared. You should be dead. Ezra smiled faintly. You're not the first person to say that. Jax scowled. You drank it. No, Ezra corrected calmly. I didn't. He stepped closer, stopping just out of reach. I noticed the way you touched the glass. The timing. The confidence. So I switched it. Jack's chest tightened. When? Ezra shrugged. Before you realized your scent was leaking. Silence stretched between them, thick and dangerous. You knew, Jax said quietly. I suspected, Ezra replied. An Omega assassin is rare, but I don't let my guard down. Jax bared his teeth. Untiny. Ezra ignored that. Who sent you? Jax laughed, sharp and humorless. You think I'd tell you? Ezra's gaze hardened. You tried to kill me. I'm not snitching, Jax snapped. Ezra studied him for a long moment, eyes tracing the cuffs, the tension in Jack's body, the stubborn whiff of his chin. Most people break faster, Ezra said, especially Omegas in heat. Jax met his stare, defiant. I'm not most people. A slow smile curved Ezra's mouth, intrigued. I can see that, he murmured. Which is why you're still breathing. Morning came slowly, dragged in by pain. Jax woke drenched in sweat, heat burning through him in relentless waves. The silk cuffs were still there, unmoved, unforgiving. His muscles ached from fighting the restraints in his sleep. Instincts clawing for freedom he refused to beg for. The suppressants were long gone. His scent filled the room now, unmistakably Omega in heat. He turned his head slightly and froze. Outside the door, the guard shifted. Jax could hear it in the man's breathing. Too fast, his alpha instincts fraying under the pressure of scent and proximity. Jax swallowed hard, anger flashing through the haze of heat. Don't, he whispered, though he knew the guard couldn't hear him clearly. Footsteps approached, then stopped, then the door opened. The guard stepped inside, eyes dark, jaw clenched like he was fighting himself. You smell so good, he muttered, more to himself than Jax. Jack's voice came out rough but steady. Get out. The guard hesitated, but then took another step forward. That was the mistake. Jax moved. He twisted sharply, using momentum, hauling his bound arms down just enough to slam his feet into the guard's throat as the man leaned in. The guard staggered, choking in surprise. Jax kicked out, heel connecting with the guard's knee. The man went down to his knees. Even half delirious with heat, even restrained, Jax didn't stop. He shifted to the edge of the bed and kicked his head against the floor just hard enough to knock the alpha unconscious. Jax collapsed against the bed. Chest heaving. Idiot, he rasped, to the guard, to himself, to this entire cursed situation. The door slammed open seconds later. Ezra walked in and stopped dead. The unconscious guard on the floor. Jax crouched by the bed, wrists still tied, breathing heavy, eyes blazing with fury and heat. Ezra's expression darkened instantly. What happened? He said quietly. Jax laughed, breathless and sharp. You should change your security. Ezra knelt, checked the guard's pulse, then stood slowly. His scent flared. Not aggressive, but controlled rage. Told him to leave, Jax snapped. I'm in heat, not fucking helpless. Ezra's gaze lifted to him, impressed. You fought him off, like that. Jax met his eyes without flinching. I've killed men bigger than him with less freedom. Silence stretched. Ezra exhaled slowly. I underestimated you. No, Jax said hoarsely. You underestimated Omegas. Ezra didn't argue. Instead, he stepped closer. You could have screamed, Ezra said. I don't need saving, Jax replied. I need out. Ezra's jaw tightened. Not yet. Ezra turned toward the door. No more guards and no more cuffs. He paused. And Jax? Jax lifted his head. You just proved why I won't kill you. A week passed in a blur. The Omegas assigned to the mansion were efficient. Meals left at the door. Fresh clothes every morning. He was untied, yet locked in. He still had walls keeping him from the freedom he craved. Jax sat on the edge of the bed, pulling off his shirt. Finally, his heat was gone, and the cuffs were gone. He could move freely now. Could stretch, could breathe, could escape. And he intended to. He walked to the bathroom and took a shower. When he was done, he tied his waist with a small towel. When swung the bathroom door open, he froze completely. Ezra, standing there, in his bedroom, arms crossed, amber eyes burning with amusement. Ezra, Jax managed, suddenly aware of every inch of exposed skin. The small towel clung precariously to his waist, leaving nothing to the imagination. You're out of the shower, Ezra said calmly, but the smirk tugging at his lips told a different story. Jack's stomach flipped. I didn't expect company. Ezra's gaze roamed, taking in the lean muscles, damp hair, the faint scent of soap mingling with Jack's lingering pheromones. Seems you're unprepared. His voice was low, teasing, almost predatory. Jack's cheeks heated instantly. "I'm dressed enough," he stammered, tightening the towel reflexively. This is modest." Ezra took a step closer, the space between them charged with tension. "Modest?" His amber eyes glinted. "I think you mean tempting." Jack swallowed hard. He had trained himself to resist, to fight, to survive, but there was something about Ezra's calm dominance that made all that training feel useless. I'm going to. Stay right there," Ezra interrupted softly, but his smirk said otherwise. "Don't move. Don't think about escaping. I've waited a long time for this view." Jack's heart hammered. He wanted to hide, but every inch of his body screamed at him that he wasn't going anywhere. Ezra reached out, brushing a wet strand of hair from Jack's face. "Relax," he whispered, close enough for Jax to feel the warmth radiating off him. "I'm not going to hurt you." Jack's pulse surged, mind spinning. He wasn't tied, he wasn't trapped by force, but this alpha had a different kind of control. Jax refused to step back. That was the first thing Ezra noticed. Most people shrank under his presence. Jax didn't. He stood there with a towel barely hanging onto his hips, damp skin cooling, chin lifted in defiance like armor. "You've been avoiding me," Jax said, breaking the silence. His voice was steadier than he felt. "Why?" Ezra leaned against the door, unhurried. "I was giving you space." Jax scoffed. "You locked me in a room for days." "Yes," Ezra agreed calmly. "I didn't want to hurt you. That was exactly the problem." Jack's jaw tightened. "You should have. You're Ezra Volkov. You don't keep assassins alive unless you plan to make an example out of them." Ezra took a step closer. "Why do you think I haven't?" Ezra asked quietly. Jax hesitated. "Because you're waiting for me to break." Ezra smiled faintly. "Wrong." Jack's breath caught. "Then why?" Ezra lifted a hand, not touching, just hovering near Jack's wrist, an almost contact that made his pulse spike. "Because I don't hurt people who were never given a choice." Jack swallowed. No one had ever said that to him before. Ezra straightened, the teasing edge fading into something colder, more dangerous. "I did my research," he said. "The organization that hired you. They thought an Omega assassin would be disposable." Jack's voice went quiet. "What did you do?" Ezra met his eyes without flinching. "I silenced them." The words landed heavy. Jack stared. "You killed them?" Ezra didn't reply, which was all the confirmation Jax needed. "So, you have no more contracts, no more handlers, no more leash around your neck." Jax felt relief as his shoulders eased. Silence filled the room, thick with unspoken things. Jack's towel slipped a fraction lower. He didn't notice. Ezra did. "You could have killed me," Jack said hoarsely. "Still could." Ezra's thumb traced the inside of Jack's wrist, where his pulse fluttered, fast and alive. "I don't kill people who fight through heat, restraints, and fear without begging." Jax laughed weakly. "You're insane." Ezra's smile returned, slow and dangerous. "And you're free." Jax blinked. "What?" "The door," Ezra said softly. "Unlocked. You can leave." Jax hesitated, just for a second too long. Ezra noticed. Something warm and unreadable passed between them. "But if you stay," Ezra added, voice dropping, "it won't be because you're trapped." Jax looked at the door, then back at Ezra. For the first time since the mission began, he realized something terrifying. He didn't want to run. The freedom Ezra offered was tempting, yet meaningless compared to the gnawing questions in his chest. "I'm staying," Jax said, voice low but firm. He avoided Ezra's eyes, pretending to focus on the floor. "Not because I want to, but because I want to know everything." Ezra raised a brow. "Everything?" "My parents," Jax admitted, his voice shaking slightly. "You said you did your research. I was taken from them when I was 10. The organization, they never told me what happened to them. When they offered me freedom, I went back to the house I grew up in. It's gone. Empty. No one, nothing, just nothing." Jack's fists clenched instinctively. His chest ached, a mix of unresolved grief and anger. "I need to know what happened, and I can't leave until I do." Ezra studied him for a long moment, amber eyes softening. "Then stay," he murmured. Jax clenched his jaw but didn't speak. The weight of his past, the void of his parents, and the uncertainty of his future pressed him forward. For the first time, Jax felt a spark of hope. Weeks later, the mansion smelled faintly of coffee and fresh bread. Sunlight spilled across the polished kitchen floor as Jax walked in straight from the gym, bare-chested, hair damp, muscles glistening. For him, walking around shirtless in the mansion was normal, as it was normal in the organization. Jax caught Ezra frozen by the counter, hands flexing nervously as he tried very hard to look casual. "Morning," Jax said casually, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. "Coffee yet?" Ezra's amber eyes flicked up. Yes, just brewing." Jax smirked, leaning against the island. "You look tense. Rough night?" Ezra swallowed, and the faintest line of blush tickled his jaw. "You're shirtless," he said carefully, voice low, controlled. His hands clenched slightly, a silent battle against something very primal. Jax laughed softly, brushing some sweat off his shoulder. "You've seen me shirtless before. You'll survive." Ezra's eyes darkened, heart hammering. He forced himself to move closer, stepping around the island. "Jax," he murmured, voice husky. Jax's smirk widened. "What?" Ezra pinned him lightly against the cool stone of the island, just enough that Jax couldn't step back. The closeness made his breath hitch, the heat between them undeniable. His thumb brushed along Jax's arm, tracing just enough to tease. Jax tilted his head, calm, almost amused. "You're sweating," he noted. "That's new." Ezra's jaw tightened. He leaned in slowly, lips dangerously close to Jax, trying to resist the urge that had been building for days. A sudden clatter of keys broke the tension. The kitchen door swung open. Oz, Ezra's second in command, froze, eyes widening at the sight. Jax shirtless, chest glistening, and Ezra pressed impossibly close, amber eyes dark and intense. "Well, this is unexpected," Oz said, smirking. Ezra's face went scarlet. "Oz," he barked, stepping back and trying desperately to mask the evidence of his arousal. Jax laughed, utterly unbothered, taking a sip of his coffee. "Morning, Oz." Oz raised a brow, walking back to the doorway. "You guys should get back to business." Ezra growled low, trying to maintain his composure, while Jax grinned cheekily. The tension between them didn't dissipate, not one bit. "You're insufferable," Ezra muttered under his breath, voice low enough only Jax could hear. "And you love it," Jax replied, smirking as he leaned against the counter, still pinned lightly, the danger and spice between them, making every second pulse with heat. A month had passed, and Jax had settled into the rhythm of life inside the mansion. Guards nodded politely, and the Mafia members treated him with cautious respect, though some still kept their distance. Blaze, third in command and a broad-shouldered alpha with a sharp tongue, was less impressed. "You're a problem waiting to happen," Blaze said one evening, arms crossed as the group gathered in the main room. "You tried to kill Ezra. You don't belong here." Jax tensed but stayed quiet, bracing for conflict. Ezra's amber eyes snapped toward Blaze, the air around him crackling with authority. "He didn't have a choice," Ezra said sharply, "and unlike you, he knows what it means to survive under impossible circumstances. If anyone questions him again, they'll answer to me." Blaze's jaw tightened, but he didn't push further. Relief coursed through Jax, making his chest ache. "Thank you," he murmured to Ezra quietly, catching the alpha's gaze. Ezra's smirk softened, just enough to make Jax's heart skip. Later, Jax found himself wandering the mansion alone, hands in his pockets, mind restless. He eventually found Ezra in the library, quietly reviewing some documents. "I still feel like I don't belong," Jax admitted, voice soft, almost vulnerable. Ezra looked up, expression unreadable for a heartbeat. Then he set the papers aside and approached him slowly. "You do belong here, with me." Jax's pulse quickened. "I don't know if that's enough," he murmured, eyes darting away. "I've lived most of my life with no choice. Even now, it feels weird to be free and have a choice." Ezra reached out, tilting Jax's chin with one strong hand. "I want you here, more than you know, and I'm not letting you go." Jax's breath hitched. The intensity of his amber gaze and the lingering tension between them pulled at something deeper than desire. It was trust, it was connection, it was home. Ezra leaned in slowly, just brushing their lips together at first. Jax froze for a heartbeat, then melted into the kiss, the nervous tension of the past month washing away. When they pulled back, faces inches apart, Ezra whispered, voice low and teasing, "See, you belong, at least with me." Jax let out a shaky laugh, finally allowing himself to feel safe. "Yeah, maybe I do." Weeks later, Jax was mid-stretch, standing in the bedroom in nothing but tight black boxers when the door slammed open. "Ezra," Jax yelled, hands flying to cover himself, cheeks flaming. "Knock, what part of knock don't you understand?" Ezra didn't move, amber eyes blazing, hair slightly mussed, jaw tight, and a smoke playing at his lips. "I didn't think you'd mind." Jax groaned, sitting on his bed, laughing despite his embarrassment. "Oh, shut up." Ezra stepped fully inside, calm, dominant, as if nothing were wrong, his eyes flicking over Jax's chest. "I wouldn't have come in if it weren't urgent." Jax raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued despite himself. "Urgent? You better not be here for a kiss like last time." Ezra stepped closer, until Jax felt the pull of his alpha presence like gravity. "I found them," Ezra said simply. Jax froze, heart hammering in his chest. "Found? Found who?" Ezra's amber gaze softened, but the intensity never left it. "Your parents." The words hit Jax like a bullet. "What? How? Where? Are they safe?" Ezra's hand reached out, brushing Jax's damp hair back from his forehead. "Yes, they're alive, safe." Jax blinked, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions. Relief, shock, joy, and a little disbelief. You did this?" Ezra smirked, leaning closer, lowering his voice just enough to make Jax shiver. "I'd do anything for you." Jax laughed shakily, half in relief, and half from the absurdity of the moment. "Well, next time, maybe knock first." Ezra grinned, leaning even closer until their foreheads nearly touched. "I like seeing you flustered. Consider it motivation." Jax groaned, dropping his head back onto the bed, laughing weakly. "You're impossible." "Maybe," Ezra admitted softly, voice low and teasing. That weekend, they had to solve minor issue before Jax could meet his parents. The Volkov Syndicate had to do a mission and had never sent an Omega on the field. It wasn't policy. It wasn't tradition. Omegas, even trained ones, were considered too fragile, too vulnerable. Jax had heard it all before, but that morning, as he checked his gear, he didn't care. He didn't care about doubts. He didn't care about stereotypes. He only cared about surviving and proving them all wrong. Ezra Volkov stood at the center of the room, commanding attention without raising his voice. "We're hitting a warehouse on the East End," Ezra said, tapping the digital map. "They're stockpiling weapons and planning an ambush on our transport routes." His amber eyes flicked briefly to Jax. "Objective is simple," Ezra continued. "Infiltrate, gather intel, neutralize threats." A low murmur rippled through the room. One of the alphas shifted his weight, then another. Finally, Blaze, the third in command, spoke. "And him?" Blaze asked, chin tilting toward Jax. "His following us?" The room stilled. Jax didn't react. He kept adjusting his gloves, eyes forward. Blaze's gaze sharpened. "His an Omega, Ezra. Field work isn't what they're supposed to do." The silence that followed was heavy. "He's coming with us," Ezra simply said. Blaze frowned. "This isn't about ego. It's about risk. Omegas in combat are unpredictable. If he goes into heat, he won't," Ezra said flatly. Blaze scoffed. "You can't guarantee that." Ezra stepped forward then, voice still controlled, but edged with steel. "I can guarantee that he's good, probably even better than you." Jax finally looked up. Every pair of eyes turned to him. "If I slow you down," Jax said evenly, "leave me behind." A few alphas exchanged looks. "But I won't," he continued. Blaze studied him for a long moment, then exhaled through his nose. "You better." Ezra stood nearby, sharp, composed, the alpha scent of command clinging to him like armor. "Stay close," he instructed. "Follow my lead." Jax nodded. He was excited. "Got it," he replied, voice steady. He was ready. Hours later, they moved silently through the shadows, Jax following Ezra's lead. Every member carried weapons. Every alpha exuded confidence. But all of them glanced at Jax once or twice, a flicker of doubt crossing their faces. "They're underestimating me," Jax muttered quietly. "Perfect." Inside, Chaos erupted almost immediately. Masked guards emerged from every corridor. Ezra took point, dual pistols raised, precision in every shot. The others followed, but the group faltered under the unexpected fire. Then came the first real threat. Two heavily armed guards cornered Ezra, cutting off his retreat. "Ezra, move!" Jack shouted, heart hammering. Before anyone could react, he darted forward, weaving with a speed that surprised even himself. His movements were fluid, a combination of training, instinct, and sheer desperation. He kicked one guard, swept the other's legs, and used the momentum to flip, grabbing the first guard's gun and throwing it to the side. "Holy, you're sure he's an Omega?" one alpha muttered under his breath. Ezra's amber eyes widened slightly, not in disbelief, but in approval. "Good," he hissed, diving forward as Jax created space. The fight intensified. Jax moved like water through the chaos, striking where others didn't expect. Weak joints, exposed wrists, necks. His size and gender made him underestimated, but his precision and cunning turned it into an advantage. Guards fell silently under his strikes, weapons knocked away before they even realized what hit them. At one point, he spotted Ezra pinned against a concrete pillar by three heavily armed enemies. Without hesitation, Jack sprinted forward, dodging bullets, sliding across the floor with a grace that made even the most seasoned alpha blink. He grabbed a pipe, swung it, knocking two assailants unconscious, and then used the momentum to shove the last one into a stack of crates. Ezra's lips twitched, a rare smile breaking across his face. "Impressive," he said quietly, voice low and dangerous. "Very impressive." The rest of the warehouse descended into chaos, but Jack's confidence soared. He found himself moving almost instinctively, anticipating enemy moves, protecting his teammates. A pair of alphas were trapped in a corner, surrounded by gunfire. Jax leapt forward, grabbing a nearby chain and swinging it to trip one, while dodging a knife to disarm the other. Within moments, both were safe, staring at him like he was some kind of supernatural fighter. You saved us," one alpha gasped, still shaking. Jack shrugged, casual despite the adrenaline. Ezra stepped beside him, eyes warm, approving, and hands brushing briefly against Jack's arm in a silent, intimate acknowledgement. "You were incredible," Ezra said softly, voice low enough that only Jax could hear. Jack's chest swelled with pride, and a flush of warmth spread through him, from recognition, respect, approval, something he hadn't felt fully in years. The team regrouped outside, the sun rising over the city as police sirens wailed in the distance. Everyone was accounted for. Everyone survived. And Jax had not only survived, but had shined. Ezra placed a firm hand on Jack's shoulder. "You're not just part of this family," he said, amber eyes holding Jack's gaze. "You're essential." Jax laughed softly, shaking his head. Ezra smirked, pulling him close in a rare, victorious embrace. "You've more than surprised me," he whispered, voice low and intimate. "You've claimed a place here, and a place with me." Jack's grin widened, heart racing. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." That night, back in the mansion, the team celebrated quietly, laughter and teasing filling the rooms. Blaze raised his glass toward Jax. "You weren't half bad," Blaze admitted, smirking. Jax winked. "Never underestimate the Omega." And Ezra, sitting beside him, couldn't stop the proud smile curling his lips. It was now Monday. The mansion felt unusually bright that morning, even for the sprawling Volkov estate. Jack's heart raced as Ezra led him through the doors of a safe house arranged by the Mafia. "Wait here," Ezra instructed softly, amber eyes scanning the surroundings. Jax froze in the hallway, pulse hammering. After months of unanswered questions, the idea of seeing his parents again made his chest ache. He had imagined this moment endlessly. What would they look like? Would they remember him? The door opened, and they stepped inside. Two familiar faces turned toward him, eyes wide, tears welling. "Jax," his mother whispered. "Mom! Dad!" His voice caught as he ran forward. In seconds, he was wrapped in their arms, holding them tight, feeling the warmth and love had been denied for so long. Ezra stayed a few steps back, smirking faintly, letting Jax have his moment. "We never stopped looking for you," his father said softly, holding him back to look into his eyes. Jax swallowed hard, blinking away tears. "Huh, I thought I'd never see you again." Jack's eyes flicked up, meeting Ezra's amber gaze, desire and gratitude obvious in his gaze. That night, back at the mansion, Jax lounged in the common area. He was officially part of the family. Ezra approached quietly, wrapping an arm around Jack's shoulders. He murmured, lips brushing the side of Jack's neck. "You belong here, with me." Jax turned, smirking. "I belong here, huh?" "You do," Ezra whispered, amber eyes darkening with need. He pressed forward, capturing Jack's lips in a kiss that was slow at first, testing, teasing, before deepening into something undeniable. Jax melted into it, every tension of the past months spilling into that heat-charged moment. When they finally parted, Jax rested his forehead against Ezra's, chest rising and falling. I never want to leave," he admitted softly. Ezra grinned, brushing strands of hair from Jack's face. "I knew you loved it here. You're not going anywhere, ever." Oz appeared in the doorway, smirking knowingly. "Wow, boss. Didn't know you were into public displays of affection." Jax laughed. Ezra growled low in his throat, and the tension melted into playful warmth. The mansion was alive with their family, the Omegas bustling, and the Mafia safe and united. Jax felt truly home, safe, loved. The end.